All right, everyone. How's everybody doing today? My name's Jose. Here again, with a new podcast. Hopefully, the podcast that we are going to be presenting today will be something that will be of interest to you.
Hello, I'm Ruben. Our podcast name is Men Redefining Manhood. Welcome to Men Redefining Manhood, a podcast and movement for fathers and men ready to rewrite what it means to be men. This isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about healing, not hiding. It's about building men up, not tearing each other down. Let's redefine manhood together.
So, let's go ahead and recap, Ruben, what we talked about during the previous podcast. We talked about leadership. I think we made some mention as well about vulnerability and how we as men have been conditioned to take on leadership roles that can bring about pressure, stress, right? And all for not wanting to be vulnerable and being able to share that leadership role with our spouse or even our children, being able to allow them to take, some decision-making abilities in certain processes. I think that's amazing that we had that discussion, but it takes us back to the beginning stages of where that comes from, and that may come from the generational patterns that are built over time that lead us now to where we're at now, and how we look at them as being normal, even though it's something that we're doing, something that maybe our fathers did, our grandfathers did. And so because of that, we see it as, this is what's expected, this is what's normal. But in reality, it may become problematic at some point in time. What's your take on it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it does go into a lot of different avenues. And like for today's topic, breaking generational cycles, I think is one of the big factors that we need to look at because, being vulnerable, being a leader, providing insight and seeing that, it can't, if you're in a relationship or with a partner, the leadership as a man doesn't have to be 100%. Yeah, we're supposed to lead and guide, but at the same time too, we have to be vulnerable with allowing our partner to also give because, for myself, I always speak personally. There was a time where I struggled a lot mentally, and my partner had to take a rub of the 80% when I could only give 20%.
Sure.
So understanding that there has to be a proper balance. But it also goes back to, generational stuff, what we were raised in, what kind of environment we're in. I think our culture too.
Sure.
It's so predominant in our Hispanic culture that the man leads, and when I put my foot down, this is where it's supposed to go. And it's like, no, we have to change that aspect. And we have to come up with something different because a lot of it is affecting not only our current relationship, but our future to come.
Absolutely. Very good point. When we look at, the cultural and the familial pressure, right, that maybe our parents and our grandparents impose on us, because, they function a certain way, we feel that obligation to function their way out of fear of criticism, right? That if we don't follow suit with the way they've been and the way they've raised their families, then we're criticized for being different. When in reality, society and times change, right? Over time, circumstances change. For example, right, in a lot of traditional families, and I'm going to speak for my Hispanic Mexican family, it was expected and it was very normalized, right? That the older generations, the males went to work, women stayed home, did the chores, took care of the children, did everything pertaining to the home. And fast forward now with the economy, the cost of living, and so forth. How does that look like when you have one person working and then you're placing other demands onto your spouse and trying to make it work at the same time? It's not in a lot of homes. It's not realistic. right? Like it requires for both people to work and both people to contribute to the home as well, not just creating that division, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, being able to restructure the generational patterns, like you mentioned, will be beneficial for the future generations, because then for them their normal will be inclusivity, right? Being okay with both partners participating and contributing, being okay with allowing your children to take on certain family roles, right? To also contribute and help, and it brings value to everyone, you know?
Yeah. When you say that, the first thing that came to mind was my son. I remember me and him have a very good relationship, so we talk a lot of personal, in-depth stuff. So I remember, you know, he just started college. He has a girlfriend that's a year younger than him, and I recall having that conversation with him and letting him know, like, hey, this is going to be a big adjustment. You know, prepare yourself for it. And he was like, yeah, I know. He's like, yeah. Me and my girl actually had a conversation because, you know, her family is more predominantly where the dad goes to work and the mom stays at home. And me and my girl have had that conversation. And he's like, I see how much you and mom strive, both working, both managing what you guys got to do. And I told her straight out, like,
Excuse me.
this is what is norm to me. You know, your norm may be different than what my norm is, but if you do want to continue a relationship with me, I do want to continue a relationship with you. I want you to go to school. I want you to get an education. You know, I financially am not going to feel comfortable living that old school way of the man goes to work and the wife stays at home. You know, I want you to better yourself. I want you to get an education. I want you to do, you know, we have to be a team. And when I heard him tell me that, I'm like, oh, okay. So I see it as like, wow, okay. We've never really had that conversation, but I know him seeing and visualizing what me and my wife have achieved and what we've done. And I say it pridefully.
Sure.
Because, you know, we worked very hard to get into the situation that we're in. I see that my son wants the same for him.
Yeah.
And that builds me a lot of pride as well, that seeing that, wow, he is seeing the hard work that we're doing, and he wants to role model that as well. So it's great to see that, because it's like, I don't want him thinking like, you know, just because we're raised in this specific culture that you have to, you know, go by that. No, let's break that norm and let's get out of that function and think differently.
Absolutely. And you know, and I want to backtrack a little bit, you know, because I want to clarify something for our audience. Having a parent that stays home while the other parent works is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
But if that's the way you're going to live, and the expectation is that you're going to want to offer your children everything and anything that you can, that's where the difference occurs, right? Because yes, you know what, if the arrangement is one person stays home, right? Again, like in traditional, families where, you know, and I'm speaking again for my family, right, where the woman stayed home and the father, the male, went to work. It works. It can work, right?
Mm.
But then let's ask the question. Let's ask the question about how well they were able to provide for their children, and was it just enough, or was there abundance? Right? And oftentimes what it comes down to is limitation. You know, it's like, well, you know, because we only have one income, right? Yeah, we can only do this, or we can only offer this, right? Whereas being able to share, right? Being able to break that, and being able to be okay with both partners working and contributing, and not feeling, as a man, not feeling less than or insecure about it. Now you create opportunity for your children, because if there's more income coming in, especially in today's economy, right? If there's more income coming in, guess what? You can afford to enroll them into sports. You can afford to send them off on a school trip to Washington, D.C. for them to learn about history. You can afford to do some of the things that, if you're on one income, may be very, very tight. And probably not possible, right? So again, it isn't that it's a bad thing. It's just that it for sure creates a lot of limitations, unless obviously the one person that is working does very well off for the entire family, and to still be able to offer that, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is also great. You know?
Yeah. When you say that, though, I try to get myself out of the mind frame of just focusing on the income part, right? Because for me, and I had this conversation with my father, I never went without. Like, my dad made good money. I don't remember ever missing anything. Yeah, it was semi-limited, but I had no relationship with my father.
Very good point.
So one of the big things for me growing up was I wanted to get out of that. And in the beginning stages, I role modeled a lot. Like, I'm gonna work, focus on what I gotta focus on, provide financially for my family, but I was never there for him. And I pride myself, in thinking the relationship that I had with my son. We were just talking when I came up. I remember going, I was his varsity high school coach practically all 4 years. I was able to go to Arizona with him, Las Vegas, not just because of the financial situation that we put ourselves in, but because of the flexibility that the employment gave us, and me and my wife, our arrangement we came up with.
Sure.
But it not only created an atmosphere for me and him to bond, but also for me to teach him.
Yes.
Like, look, this is what two household looks like.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, this gives us the option to be able to do those things, But it built such a great relationship, of something that I really didn't have with my father. Like, the conversations I have with my son, I remember my first sex conversation I had with my dad was, "You better not bring no girl home pregnant."
Yeah.
No, my sex conversation with my son was completely different. It was all about, staying protected, watching out for diseases, giving them all the information and letting them know, hey, eventually you're going to become an adult. You're going to get to that age where you and your partner may want to. I get it. I understand. I was there as well. But I gave him that voice to be able
with responsibility.
With
right?
responsibility, yeah. So that's something that I pride myself in, but I've also understood that with having both those parties on the same queue, which me and my wife were in the beginning, has determined to where our son is at now. He's at an amazing school right now. He's doing great. He constantly messages us. Like, it's such a good experience to see what he's doing. I feel pride in it to know how good my son is doing, and it's like, and it's something that I didn't have. Yeah, I had the financial, my dad working to make sure that we maintain the family. There was 4 boys. He had to go out there and work his butt off to provide for us.
Yeah.
And
that's I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head, right? Because that's what happens, right? That when you're not willing to break that generational pattern and frame of thinking, then what you do is you put yourself in a position of having to sacrifice, right? Yes, you go to work more to make sure that your family's well, but then you sacrifice that time to be able to spend with your kids, right? And before you know it, before you know it, right, your children grow and they see you as a provider, but oftentimes the relationship that they have is with the other parent and not with you, right? And it's a very difficult pill to swallow when then you finally snap out of it and you're like, wow, you know what? I made such a sacrifice all for my family, and now my kids don't even feel connected to me. I don't feel connected to my kids, and they have a relationship with their mom, if that's how we're positioning it, right? because she's the one that's always been there, and a lot of lost time in between, right, for your children and for you, you know.
Yeah. But it could cause all kinds of other issues.
Sure.
Like, you know, I keep going to my family dynamic. You know, my parents' relationship is not the best because my father, that's all he did was work. You know.
So it creates that disconnect, right?
Yeah, there was no connection with me. There was no connection with my brothers. There was no connection with my mother. Like, all he did was provide. And, you know,
thinking that was the thing to do.
Yeah,
right?
This is my way of showing love.
Sure.
This is my way of doing what I have to do, is providing. And I feel like a lot of that is our culture. It's, you know, you have a roof over your head, you know? I seen a video not so long ago. The guy was saying, "No te falta comida, no te falta ropa, a roof over your head. You have everything.
What else do you need?
What else do you need?
want?" Right?
Yeah, and the kid tells him, "I wanted you, Dad.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be there. I wanted you to experience some of the stuff that you went to." And I go back and I think of the lifestyle that me and my wife have put ourselves in. I recall it. I've never missed. My son played basketball from when he was 6 years old to 18 years old. I never missed one game. I was always there, and he played travel basketball and he played basketball for a rec league, high school, and everything. So I say that pridefully. Being there for my kid was very important, and it's paid off because, you know, he's grown now. But I mean, he texts me about stuff that I'm like. The other day he texted me to ask me permission to do some stuff with his friends, and I'm like, "Son, you're 18. Like, why you asking me that?" He's like, "Well, I respect your opinion, Dad. I want you to know what you think about it." And that made me emotional. I'm like, I would have never felt that comfortable or that vulnerable to talk to my dad like that, like, because we didn't have that relationship. And it's like, I say it with pride. I'm like, dang, okay, like, it's totally different.
Absolutely.
And you know, somebody asked me, my barber recently asked me, he's like, you know, now that Ruben's out of college and all that stuff, because he gets haircuts with him, so they're always conversating. He's like, you know, as a dad to dad, like, how do you feel? Like, how do you think you've done as a father? And I said, honestly, I feel like I broke that cycle that I came from. I said, because I see it in him. I see the desire of what he wants to do. I see the communication style that we have. Yeah, it's not perfect. You know, we're human. You know, I slip up, he slips up every now and then, but we could take accountability, which is something that's hard for, I think, a lot of our culture and a lot of, you know, my own family dynamic. So I say pridefully, like, I feel honestly that I've gotten to the point where I've broken that cycle. I've gotten out of that frame of what the norm was and reinventing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's huge because, you know, that requires for you to include and take risk and allow your children, right, to be part of the process, right? In other words, it isn't just you as a parent because you're the parent and your spouse as the other parent guiding and making all 100% of the decisions, but rather it's asking your children for feedback, allowing them to make decisions, allowing them to provide an opinion and so forth. That builds their confidence, right? And being able to make, you know, decisions in life that as a parent make you proud, you know, because, you know, and we know it, that, you know, there's many roads that we could have taken, just like there's many roads that our children could have taken, right? Whether they're good or whether they're bad. And the fact that they've made the choice to stay on a good path is very telling, right? About the support and about the home environment, the upbringing, and so forth. Yeah. I was thinking about that, you know, because I was also thinking about it, and as you were talking, I'm like, you know, like our son's going to be leaving to the Air Force on Tuesday, right? And as I've been reflecting and processing, you know, him leaving the home, you know, the one thing that came to mind was that as parents, on one side we're proud, on another level we may be nervous and anxious, but at the same time it's very telling of him to be able to make that type of a decision that lets me know, you know what, you've instilled that confidence in him to be able to make that choice, right? And you got to be proud of that, right? That, you know, that a choice for an 18, 19-year-old to head off to college, to head off to the military, to head off, you know, and venture out, you know, to work, or to, you know, comes with a certain level of confidence, you know, that parents instill in their kids, right?
Yeah.
So definitely a shift in generational patterns, right? Because previously, right, parents might be very authoritative, very controlling. No, you're not going to do this. No, you're not going to do that. You know, and so forth, right? Very negative based. And so, you know, you start to doubt yourself, and making those type of decisions doesn't come easy at that point in time.
Yeah, and I think about it a lot with him. I'm just like, because he tells me all the stuff that he does, and I'm just like, even though he still calls tricks in here and there, I'm just like, you know, I look at it and I'm like, man, it's a huge blessing to see where he's at, you know what I mean? And I think of you too. I think of like your situation, and I'm like, dang, how's Jose handling that? I'm like, man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But there's no, you know, the reason why I feel like we both aligned to want to start this podcast is that conversation around how we also deal with our emotions towards it. You know, I think of you a lot, you know, in regards to when your son's leaving, like they have all these, like my wife, when my son left, you know, I stayed like the whole day crying, and she's like, what's wrong with you? Be happy, be proud. I'm like, I'm very proud of him, but at the same time, like, that's a piece of me that I won't be able to walk down the hallway and see him.
Absolutely.
So, like, there's a lot of support when it comes to like women and
Absolutely.
the moms and kids and stuff, but like, where is it? Where's it for us guys? Like we get emotional too about it. And it's like,
bro.
it's hard. It's like, you know, but it's difficult for us to feel comfortable around to show our emotion about it. It's like
to be vulnerable,
yeah,
right?
I've gotten to the point where I don't care. Like I sit there and cry sometimes. It's just like I feel a sense of relief after it. It's like,
absolutely.
okay, it's like this, you know, also raised and predominant where los hombres no lloran,
Right.
men don't cry, and it's like,
Where you
no,
suppress your feelings
I feel so much a sense of of getting that weight off. Like
Absolutely.
it's hard, you know, but it's like
Yeah.
I want to teach other men that you know,
That it's okay.
that it's okay. We got to break this cycle. We got to break this thought process that, you know, we're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to show vulnerability. We can't, you know, we're supposed to be these macho men. And then it's like, we can be the macho men, but we also could show our kids that it's okay to show emotion. Like,
Absolutely.
it's norm, because if we don't, then we go other paths. Like,
Yeah, you know, people resort to drinking, right?
Yeah.
People shut down. They don't want to go out in public. They,
Mhm.
you know, they start to become depressed, right? And it's like, that's not the way to go. You know, the way to go is to show emotion, you know?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you, you know, being vulnerable in our podcast, you know, and becoming emotional, because trust and believe me when I tell you this, that sometimes out of nowhere, I become emotional myself, you know, and I think I mentioned this before, you know, like I almost feel like I've been grieving my son ever since he enrolled or began his process to join the Air Force, right? And as the day approaches, you know, and it gets closer, the more I question myself what my response is going to be when Monday comes 12:30 p.m. and we're dropping him off for him to go to boot camp. You know? And so, you know, I try to balance myself out by reminding myself, you know, like, you know, this is his process, this is something that he wants, but at the same time, right, I also remind myself, this is a part of me also that I'm letting go, you know, like, it's hard, you know, and, you know, it's interesting, there's been times when I'm walking the treadmill, or, you know, I'm doing exercise and I just break down, and I'm like, damn, like, this is hard, you know. And then I'm like, and I get it together, and then I go through another wave of emotions, and, you know, and I'm like, man, you know, like, it isn't, I never thought that it would be like this, you know, that you would get to a point where, you know, your children grow, and you gotta let them fly, even though you want to still keep them, right?
Yeah, you want to keep them and protect them.
Yeah, you want to keep them and protect them, and the reality is that, you know, what is the healthiest thing to do? You keep them and protect them, and then, you know, make them feel insecure, you know, or do you allow them to go and venture, and, you know, if you have faith, right?
Yeah. Believe
in your faith, and believe in God, and, you know, and that everything will go well, and you continue forward, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm anticipating that moment, you know. I'm anticipating that moment because, you know, our house is gonna be quiet. Our house is gonna be, his room's gonna be empty. His, you know,
different.
It's gonna be different, you know. And now it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's different. We even have our, you know, me and the wife still have our youngest, but it's still different because, and it's hard too, because sometimes she'll come and she's like, my brother's not here, who am I supposed to play with?
Yeah, wow.
And I'm just like, and sometimes she'll open his door and I'm like, Sophia, don't do that. I'm like, oh, man. And then emotions kick back in.
Sure.
I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's difficult. It's hard. You know, and that's why I feel like we came together to start this podcast, because how many other men are out there probably dealing with the same situation?
Yes.
But are just not speaking about it because we have to be these macho men, these super machistas, these...
Or fear of being criticized, right? And
being laughed at or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
Yeah, you know, I think that's the one thing that we got to give ourselves, right? That just like we give ourselves, we give so much of ourselves in other areas. You know, we got to give to ourselves that opportunity, you know, to be able to feel, you know, to be able to experience emotion, and to be able to let it out, and to be okay with that, you know.
Empathetic towards ourselves.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we aren't. We're so busy focused on everything else and judging what we've done wrong and what we could do better, and it's like, no, like, I think about it when I see him, I'm like, no, I know that me and my wife have done an amazing job, and it's hard because I want to protect him to the full extent. I don't want nothing to happen to him, but I have to remind myself too that he's a great kid, and I have to let him grow. Eventually he's gonna have his own family and do what he has to do, and I gotta be okay with it.
Yeah. It's part of it is fear, and part of it is trusting and letting go, right?
Yeah.
At least for me, that's what it is. It's like, you know, I have this fear that something might happen, and then I also question, like, you know what, like, but what if he makes a mistake, and there's a consequence that come with it, or, you know, that I could have protected him from, or, you know, like, and it's like, you know, like, I think it's a natural experience, right? For us to feel that way is normal, you know, like, and it's not easy, you know.
We've always been their protectors. That's why it's like,
yeah, it's not easy, you know. I had a friend of mine who his son just left to the Navy, maybe like this past week, and he's a high school friend of mine, and we've touched base, right, like every so often, but obviously, you know, it's been years, right, since we went to high school together, so it wasn't, over time, right, people grow and they part ways and they go in their own direction, but through social media, you know. And he reached out to me and he was like, he asked if my son was going to the Navy, and I said, no, he's going to the Air Force. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I've been struggling. He said, I've been struggling, because, even though he's 22, like, I feel like I'm grieving, like I've lost him because he's gone, like I don't get to talk to him for a certain amount of time. And I'm like, yeah, like I can see where that's coming from, and so, but getting back to the generational patterns, right? It's like, that's a perfect example of something that's different, right? Because like you mentioned, right? In the past, you were probably expected to shut up, ignore your emotions, continue on with your day, like nothing happened, minimize the situation and just say everything's gonna be fine, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, what we're doing is probably the healthiest, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging our emotions, being okay with how we feel, being able to express how we feel, right? And also accept that, that it's a difficult transition, it's a difficult moment.
Yeah.
And that if you're not okay, it's okay to not be okay. It doesn't always have to be okay,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anything else you want to add before we finish up, or what do you think? Yeah.
No, I think we really got in depth in this conversation.
I think it was great.
I think it's something that really needs to be spoken about. Because again, I've been thinking a lot about you lately in regards to your son leaving, and I'm like, how can I extend my, like, I'm here for you, Jose. Like,
likewise, and I want you to know that I'm here for you too. Anytime you need to talk, you got my number and everything. Like, we have our numbers, and I think that that's also important, and it's also healthy, right, for men to be able to create their own support systems, right? Just like women have, right? I got to give women credit for that. Like, they're able to reach out to their girlfriends and to their comadres and to, right, and not talk about anything else but what's going on in their lives and how they're struggling or how they're feeling, right? And we should be able to do the same, right? To where we can have a support system, to where we don't just talk about changing oil or basketball or football, but to actually talk about some real conversations, about how we're feeling, how's our mental health, how are we managing, how are we coping with the daily stressors of life, I think that's very much needed, especially in today's society.
I agree. Yeah, I just, I think of you, but I also think of all our audience, people that are watching, and then also other people that may have never seen our podcast, just men in general. Absolutely. How many other people are out there, I think about it a lot because recently in our town, I don't know if you've seen, but there was a 23-year-old boy out in at Schooners that committed suicide.
Yes.
And his dad posted about it, and
yeah,
I couldn't. I tried to read some of it, but I couldn't. And I'm like, just the thought of it, I'm like,
as a father,
man, I'm like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
That just shows how much, distraught there is in this world that we live in, and I feel like there needs to be more conversations in regards to mental health, in regards to men's vulnerability and what we're really going through. 'Cause
absolutely,
a lot of us hide it. I hid it for a very long time, how I felt.
Yeah.
So,
and it creates internal destruction.
Yeah.
When you hide it and you don't express it, right, it eats at you slowly.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It eats at you very slowly until you can no longer tolerate it, right? And that's when, in an effort to try to deal with it or make it go away, people go to drastic measures, right? Whether it's taking your lives, getting into alcohol or drugs, right?
Yeah.
Engaging in risky behaviors, right?
Yeah.
And, but anyway, like, we want our audience, to know that, it's okay to reach out to a friend. It's okay to talk about what's going on, create those opportunities where you can really have meaningful conversations, about areas of life that are important to you and how you're managing them.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I've been even thinking that maybe once we have more of an audience and more of attention, we could start something like that. You know, maybe start a group where, you know, we could check in once a week, once a month, you know, every other week, something, just for us to have, you know, that open space to
Absolutely.
be able to talk, you know, because, you know,
Absolutely.
in my line of work, I've ran into a lot of people that I've talked to, and they're like, "You gone through that too?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like I thought I'm the only one that has been through some crazy stuff like that. I'm like, no, I've been through a lot as well.
Yeah, our
So-
mental health is real, right? A lot of people might not understand, you know, what mental health is or mental wellness, right? But you know, our brains are the most important organs in our body,
Yeah,
right? Yet it's probably the one that we least check on,
yeah,
right? We'll go get, you know, a physical, and they'll check our labs, and they check, you know, our kidneys, and they check our liver and our heart rate and blood pressure and everything. But when do you make time to go and take care of your well-being up here, right?
yeah.
Check in, right, to make sure that, you know, you have the support that you need. You know, oftentimes that's not the case, you know.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a professional setting or whether it's with people close to you that surround you, that you can have those type of conversations with. Either way, right? I think it's a good way to go, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So finishing up to finish up the podcast, I know that, you know, we've talked about, and I'm not sure if it's for the following podcast, or maybe the one right after, but just to give our audience a sneak peek, right? Our intention is to bring on board somebody, right? Another gentleman that can provide personal experience as well, right? About, you know, what it's been like for them, you know, to navigate life as a man and mental health and so forth, right? And
Yeah.
so I think it'll be good, right? So it isn't just us two talking, but rather also getting, you know,
Insight from other people.
insight from other people, you know, and that's something that we're going to be doing over time, right? Bringing on board, or, you know, bringing different people, inviting different people into our podcast to share their perspectives of what life has been like for them as men and as parents, and you know, what they think about mental health.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So thanks again, guys, for everything. We will go ahead and finish up, and then please stay tuned for our next podcast. At this moment, we don't have specifically what we're doing for the next one, right?
Mhm.
But you know, stay tuned, and we guarantee that the next one, the next topic that we bring up, will also be very interesting, and hopefully it'll be something that'll be beneficial to you. All right, everybody, be well, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Thank you for joining.